Hi, welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. This is Dianne, your lactation consultant.
And I'm Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder. And today's episode is brought to you by Fairhaven Health. Are you leaking breast milk in between feedings? Now you can collect that milk rather than throw it away in your breast pads. And today's episode is also brought to you by Sarah's Chill. Never worry about storing your breast milk or formula again. Sarah's Chill offers guaranteed convenience with their double-walled stainless steel container. And we will hear more from our sponsors later, but at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com, we have a sponsor page. And if you can head there and see if you can give any of our sponsors your business, that would be great. They make this podcast possible. And while you're there, you can scroll down and enter your email address, and you'll get episodes sent straight to your inbox every Monday. I promise you will. I send them out. It happens.
It will happen.
Yeah. And now Dianne has our review of the week.
And it comes from iTunes, and it's from Meg. She says, my favorite podcast ever. I am so obsessed. Thank you for always speaking the truth about nursing and parenting. My favorite episode ever is breastfeeding and bad habits. The energy I felt during that podcast from you is the same energy I have about a lot of breastfeeding parenting topics. When did it become acceptable to ignore our motherly instincts? I'm getting caught up on older episodes right now, and I listen every day. I'm dreading the day when I'm completely caught up and have to wait for new episodes. Thank you again from this bed-sharing breastfeeding mama that loves creating bad habits. And I picked this one today because I kind of felt like it almost went with what we were talking about today. And I know we're talking about how breastfeeding changes over time, but a lot of those changes people kind of label as a bad habit. So I kind of thought right.
Yeah. Like, did I do this?
Right.
Did I do something that's making them do this now?
Are they still waking up because I'm breastfeeding them to sleep? Right. So now they're still waking up. Or
something's wrong
Yeah. So that was kind of why I picked that one. So we're going to talk more about that, but just want to say thank you, Meg, for leaving that on iTunes for us and for reaching out and telling us what your favorite episode is. I forgot about that one. I'll have to.
No, I feel her so deeply. Like when the thing that you're into is done, I'm a huge Breaking Bad fan, and I whimpered through Breaking Bad again, and then watched Better Call Saul, and then the show was over. I'm so depressed. I'm just what am I going to do with myself? Right. And it's so sweet that our podcast is that to her, but I feel that feeling so much. And it's oh no, there's only one more season left. And oh no, there's only a couple more episodes.
Even though you know how that ends. But
right. Yeah, right. You've seen it before, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then you're oh my God, why can't they just make it 7 episodes a day? Just spend millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars on making episodes and never let the workers go home.
Yeah. Well, that will not happen.
I just had to share in that.
Yeah. We will not be doing that. But we will. We do not know where we're ending. So we're still going to be here for a while longer. Keep listening. But yeah, thank you so much. And, leave us reviews and tell us what you like and episodes that you like and things that we can help with, questions, any of that stuff. We love it.
And straight up, your reviews help us.
Yeah, they do.
And if you are listening to the parenting podcast, we also have a parenting podcast, Revolution Parenting. So find that. And also please leave a review there because we don't have as many there. And it really does help the podcast. And if you can take just a second to do that on iTunes, if you are able to, thank you.
Yeah, we love it. Thank you so much. Now, should we talk about how breastfeeding changes with age?
Yeah. So the big thing that comes up for me a lot is how people constantly, and my friend who's in my inbox a lot, she knows exactly who she is.
My friend.
She's my new friend, and I talk her off a lot of cliffs. And, but it's obviously the concerns that she has are concerns that everyone else has. I've heard before. She's very concerned about her baby went from nursing endlessly. You know how they do when they're new. They go on and on and on and on. And you're oh my God, you see the memes, I have to pee and now I'm a skeleton. And because they just don't stop.
Yep.
And then suddenly one day they eat for 5 minutes and then they're off. And you're oh my God, they're not eating anymore. Oh my God, they're weaning. Oh my God, I must not have enough milk in there. I don't know. And It's just like suddenly they're not on the boob as long. And so therefore something must be wrong.
Mm-hmm. That is one of the biggest ones, honestly. Yeah. And I always kind of like have to chuckle because I'm like, this is what this is the stage you wanted to get to, right? When you are in the beginning and you're that skeleton and you're like, oh my God, I can't handle it. Like, it's so overwhelming. It's too much. And we're always like, I know it's normal. This is what babies do. But once they kind of get acclimated, like they're probably going to, their feed times are going to shorten and things are going to be different. And then it's like, people are going, oh my God, they're not feeding for as long. What is wrong? So it's like, you can't win, right? You hate it when it's too long.
No, I know. Yeah.
And when it's too short, you're like, what is going on here? But I always try to tell parents, like, okay, how's your baby doing? Like, this is what we wanted to get to, right? We wanted to get to this point, and it's very normal for you to have these questions because everybody questions it once they get to this point. But it's so funny when they say to me, oh yeah, tons of wet diapers still, pooping still, gaining lots of weight. Like, then we're good. Like, we have to look at everything. You have to look at your baby. Don't just like look at what they're doing. Look at your baby. Are they fine?
Yeah. And it's also like this, they're not going to be spending hours upon hours at your breast like they do when a newborn forever. They're getting older. They're getting more efficient at eating. Their mouth muscles that they've been nursing with this whole time are super strong now.
Mm-hmm.
Their bellies are a little bigger. They can eat faster. They can take in more in a shorter amount of time. And they're not going to spend a lot of time there. But you know what the kicker is? At some point, they will. Then they'll go back to like, I want to nurse all the time. And then like, if you go nursing into toddlerhood and stuff like that, you're going to go through all kinds of changes there too. Oh my God, why is it different now? Oh my God, they're doing something different. Oh my God, they're 2 years old and they want to nurse all day and all night. What is wrong? I must have created this monster.
I had that during the pandemic. Yeah, I had that a lot during the pandemic. People were like, now that I'm home every day, working from home, my toddler wants to nurse all the time again. Like, yeah, you're home. Things are different. Things are changing. It's okay. It's everybody evolves and changes, but your body is also going to change with that too, right? Like your milk supply is going to adapt to what the baby needs it to do. So you're not going to feel as full during the same time, which I think throws people off. Like your body and your baby just tend to like, they work so well together that you're not feeling as full. Your baby's not feeding as frequently or as long. And it's like, what's happening? Do I not have any milk left? What's going on?
Yeah. And now, so like, evolutionarily speaking, like we are these conscious beings now that like can think and overthink and have these abstract thoughts and all this stuff. But like back when we didn't, we just did what our bodies did, right? This is what animals do. Animals aren't like, oh my God, I'm not making enough milk. Like they don't know to say that, they can't, all they can do is operate off their instincts. But now we can look and question everything. And there's a separation between like our brain and our bodies. And it's like the baby and the body are still talking just like they always have for millions of years. Mm-hmm. Just like all the other animals on the planet, your body and your baby are still having that conversation. And you're like, not a part of it. You feel like your brain's up here going like, what's going on? Yeah. You don't know that there's this like, since the beginning of mammals, conversation going on between the two of them.
I had this kind of the same conversation with one of the pediatricians that I work with, and she's a newer pediatrician. She's adorable. She's young, and she seems to really appreciate what I tell the parents, and like has, when anything comes up, like whenever they question anything, she just like sends it to me, which I appreciate so much. But I had a conversation with one of her families the other day about no pumping until about 2 weeks. The baby's feeding really well. Everything is fine. Let the baby in your body adapt to what the milk supply needs the baby for, what the baby needs your milk supply to do. And then after about 2 weeks, you can start pumping if you want to, if you want somebody else to give a bottle, like whatever, the situation may be. But try not to do anything like that for about the first 2 weeks. Let things kind of adapt. And she says, She goes, I noticed in your note that you told the parents not to pump yet. She's like, why did you tell them that? And she wasn't being like, why did you, she was just like, what was the reasoning behind that?
She was never taught that.
Exactly. So
she doesn't have kids. The question.
Yeah, she doesn't have kids of her own yet. So, I mean, she's like super young. So she doesn't have kids of her own yet. So she was like, why did you tell them that? So I told her, and I said, a lot of times they'll come out of the hospital pumping and nobody ever says to them, now that your milk is coming in, or once your milk starts coming in, stop pumping and just let the baby do his job. Like, stop pumping. So then they end up with this oversupply, which is awful. And I said, people are under the impression that you need to keep pumping in order for you to have a milk supply to be sustained. So we've been doing this for 1 million years without pumps. Like, if we just trust the process, it works. They didn't have pumps back in the, like 1 million years ago. The animals don't have pumps. They just feed their baby. The baby tells your body, this is what we need. And that's it. We don't need that stuff. But like you said, there's that disconnect now that we just question all the things.
And
like, the medical, everything. And
the
we're
medicalization
just like,
of everything.
Yeah.
And here is an example. Here's proof of all the things that I constantly say about how doctors are not taught about lactation. And here we have a nice young doctor that was like, oh, I want to understand that. Mm-hmm. Not just like throw the notes or, be like, well, that's wrong, or just ignore it, which is what the majority of them do.
Right.
And so here is a doctor fresh out of medical school who was not taught about lactation. When are you going to believe me?
And this is, and she just wanted to do, because this happened, this family was a same-sex couple. So they wanted, like, the other parent wanted to help feed because they both wanted that connection, right? So they wanted to be able to do that. And so they were, okay, when can we pump so that,
they both want a milk supply.
Exactly. And I was like, okay, we need to give it a little time. So really they had asked the pediatrician, like, okay, we want to have, we want the other parent to be able to feed and blah, blah, blah. So that's why she kind of had me step in. And then she was like, okay, why did you tell them what you told them? So what, like, she did not know, obviously.
Right.
And asked, which is great, because we really don't, like, we just kind of like throw information out there. And things do change. And that's one of the other things that really kind of impacts the breastfeeding behavior is things change so much, or the breastfeeding relationship, I should say. What is happening with your baby when they're fresh out of the womb is not going to be what they're doing when they're 3 months old. In anything that they do.
No, yeah. I think we forget about how rapidly they're growing and they're changing at that age. It's like, well, when I'm, 44, I'm pretty much the same as when I'm 45, but that's not, there is a period of time when they're just born that's the growth and the development is like astronomically fast.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're going through so many changes. So, you think, oh my God, they're doing something different than they were doing last week. They are completely different than they were last week.
Completely different. Yeah. Completely.
They're at a completely different level, which is why those books that you get the books, I don't like the books, but
I hate them.
But just as far as like books that like talk about developmentally what's going on, that's why the chapters are so, it's like, one first week to second week. And then, the first chapter is just like the first week. That's what's going on, and then later on, it's like toddler years are like one, all those years are in one chapter. But the first chapter is just like the first week.
Yeah. Week 1. Week 1, your baby's doing this. Week 2, your baby's doing this. But nobody ever talks about like how the feeding changes. The only thing they ever talk about is how much you should increase their intake. Yeah, your baby's 4 months old. They should be taking this many ounces per feeding at this point. It's like, why don't we talk about what that feed looks like? Because this is based on a bottle feeding culture.
Well, it's bottle, right? Exactly.
So we don't talk about it. And then it leaves parents going, well, why is my baby breastfeeding differently? Is this okay? Is it wrong? And it's not wrong. But parents need that concrete. And I know, especially me, like maybe there's parents out there that feel like, oh, my baby's changing. I can just kind of roll with it. I needed something more concrete. I needed to be like, I really needed to know, like, is this okay and why is this okay? So I always try to tell parents, like, this is what you're watching for. This is the reason why you're going to see it be different, because your baby becomes more efficient, or your baby is more awake, or your baby knows what they're doing now. So you're going to have feeds that are less, less frequent or shorter. Totally normal. They should know that. But they don't know that going into it. This is totally new for everybody.
Yes.
Baby to baby, even. Totally new for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going through that right now with Jack, and they're older, but it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Jack is 10 and, let's start. Exley's 7. By the time Jack was 7, he was like reading and writing and speaking these elaborate sentences where people would look at me at play dates and be like, did he just say apparently? And I'm like, just ignore him. Like, don't, he was just like really early with a lot of stuff. Exley I was just talking to his karate teacher and she was like, I feel like he should move up to the older kids now, but he's still developmentally, he's like, with the like left and right, he's still a little confused about left and right. And, but that's the only thing that really matters in karate. She was like, but I feel like that doesn't matter. But I was like, yeah, I mean, I see the same thing, that he's like slower with and I hate saying slower because it's not a race. And there's no like, here's where you're supposed to be at any certain age. Like schools will have you believe,
right?
By this age, you should be reading. By this age, you should be writing. Except everybody develops differently. Exley was, by the time he was 2, he wasn't saying much. He's 7. He still gets the fucking 8 and the 10 mixed up. I'm like, we're playing Skippo. He's like putting the 8 down. I'm like, no, it's a 10. but it's like so different.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just one family. They both came from me, and they're so different at these ages.
I mean, for me, like I have twins. So when they were babies, like came out at the same time. Well, 3 minutes different, but they, and totally different from the very start. Their feeds, like my daughter was very chill. She was always like this every 3 hours girl. She just, was very content all the time. My son had to be feeding more frequently. He wouldn't sleep if he wasn't. He was definitely more clingy. Like they were completely different babies. And parents now, sometimes, like I didn't think about it too. I was too, when you're in it, you're like drowning. So I wasn't even thinking about it. But parents now are like, why is this baby doing what this baby's doing something different than this baby? Why is it happening? Why are they? They're very different, and they change over time. So it is what it is. We just have to kind of follow it through. But we always think there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And I had something come up on my breastfeeding bootcamp page the other day where somebody posted a question, and she was like, the baby's 9 months old and breastfeeding is painful again. Why is this happening? What's going on? And it's like, I think we get to a point with breastfeeding where we're like, you're kind of like, think you're smooth sailing, and then something happens and you're like, okay, now what? Why am I having pain again? Or why is the baby eating every 20 minutes again? Or what? It's like something must be wrong. And it's like, and my first question was, is she getting teeth? Oh yeah, there is one popping through. There you go. So sometimes it's just something that's very like, we just have to recognize the signs, but it is not uncommon for things to switch up on you.
It's true. And I have so much more to say, but should we take a break?
Oh, shoot. Yes.
Holy crap.
It's late.
I
okay.
know. I just looked for a second ago and it was 12 minutes. So I don't know where the last 6 minutes went, but
sorry, guys.
Hopefully it was helpful. No,
I know.
We were obviously into it. All right. We'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Fairhaven Health. The original Milk Saver is designed to wear on the opposite breast while breastfeeding, but sometimes we are leaking in between feedings when we are on the go or at work. The Milky's Milk Saver on the go is a discreet and comfortable breast milk collection system that requires zero effort on your part. You simply slip them into your bra while your milk collects inside them. When you are ready to empty them, you pour your collected milk into a storage bag to add to your stash or to use for any of the dozens of uses of breast milk. They cannot be seen under your clothes. They are small enough to carry in your purse and reusable. These can also be used to protect sore or cracked nipples while they heal, as they create a small, open, protected area around your nipples. Save your precious breast milk, money, and the environment by cutting down or even eliminating the use of breast pads. Breast milk is worth saving. Check out the Milky's Milk Saver on the go at Fairhaven Health, that's FAIRHAVEN health.com, and use code BADASS for 15% off of your purchase. And today's episode is also brought to you by Sarah's Chill. Never worry about safely storing your breast milk or formula again. Sarah's Chill was invented by a mom for moms and offers guaranteed convenience with their double-walled stainless steel container. A little bit of water and ice is all you need to keep your breast milk or formula safe for 20 hours. No more lugging around chunky coolers and dozens of containers. You can pump and double pump all day into one sleek container. The chillers are dishwasher safe, airport friendly, and last a lifetime. Use it for wine, coffee, or any of your favorite beverages or snacks when you're done breast or bottle feeding. Head over to Sarah's Chill, that's CERESCHILL.com, or check them out at Sarah's Chill on Instagram. And use code BADASSBreastfeeders25 for 25% off of your purchase. Badass Breastfeeders 25. And these sponsors and the promo codes can be found at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com under our show notes under this episode. Our show notes will also include further information about things we talk about in this episode. And at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com, you also find our breastfeeding resources, all of our other episodes, and information about scheduling your very own one-on-one online lactation consultation with Dianne.
So what you got? And we're back. So what you got?
Okay, so I just wanted to, I don't know, I was just taking notes as we were talking. But I remember talking to a friend of mine in the park, and I think it was after Exley, I was nursing Jack, and I think Exley had been born, and I was like tandem nursing, I think. And I was talking to her and she was like, I don't know. I was talking about how we've been going for a while. And I was just like, I don't like it anymore. I don't like this. I hate it. I just hate breastfeeding. I hate all of it. And she looked at me and she goes, yeah, breastfeeding evolves.
Oh.
It evolves. And I was just like, oh my God. Yeah, you're going to go through so many stages and phases.
It's like words of wisdom right there. Breastfeeding evolves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, you're right. And so then it evolved into something else not that long later, And so your child is going to constantly change. And the way you feel about it is going to change too. And if you want to stop, go ahead and stop. But also know that if you're struggling and you don't really want to stop and you're just struggling with how you feel about it, that it's going to change into something else. Not that long. If you really are breastfeeding, into toddlerhood, which I think probably some of the people who have been listening for a while are. I mean, this podcast has been on for 4 years now.
Yeah.
So if you were listening from the beginning with a baby, you have a 4-year-old. Or, a couple years, they're getting older. And I do believe that people are nursing toddlers probably more than ever now.
Yeah.
Not more than ever in our history, but I mean more in maybe the last couple decades.
Or at least coming out with it more. Before, I think they used to hide in a closet.
Well, yeah, that's true. But people also used to wean at the recommendation of their doctor more. Mm-hmm. And now I think people more are going, I don't know if I'm going to listen to you.
We also have to think about kind of playing off of what you were saying with, breastfeeding evolves and everything. I hated it in the beginning, the first couple of months. And it wasn't just the breastfeeding that I hated. I hated the whole thing, the whole recovery and adaptation and transition. And that for me was really hard. So that's what I didn't like. And the more, but you just blame it on everything. And I feel like breastfeeding gets blamed for everything anyway, but really just didn't like it. So you have to think about almost okay, I am not happy with this breastfeeding relationship right now. Is that what I'm unhappy with? Or am I just really struggling with the stage we're in? Because sometimes the stage you're in is just hard and unexpected. And you don't have to like every stage. I used to do a support group with a very wise, very, very smart therapist who was one day she goes, you don't have to like every stage. You don't have to like the newborn stage. You don't have to like the toddler stage. You don't have to like it when they're teenagers. You don't have to. It doesn't mean you don't like your baby. You just don't have to enjoy that stage. But then everything that's in that stage, you tend to dislike.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. And then it evolves again and it changes again and it's different afterwards. And then you're like, okay, I can handle this for a little bit longer.
Yeah. I mean, there is not anybody who is going to like them waking up constantly through the night.
No.
Like, who likes that? I was like, oh, I love this stage where they wake up every half an hour to nurse. Or they never let go of my nipple. As soon as I try to take it out of their mouth, they cry.
Yeah.
No one's like, oh, yay, that's the best one. Like, everybody hates that. It's not just you. And that's part of them growing too. The changes of breastfeeding as they get older is their sleep is going to change, which is going to affect the nursing behavior.
And
which freaks people out too. As soon as the baby sleeps for a while, then they're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I think they slept too long. Even all you want is sleep, but then when they sleep, you're scared.
But then once they start waking again, because that usually happens. Like when I have parents that tell me, oh yeah, the baby's sleeping, long stretches at like 2-3 months old. Like it can happen, but it usually doesn't stay like that.
I know. They're like, oh, is this okay? I'm like, yeah, just enjoy it now.
Right. And it doesn't
Because
typically
it
stay
won't
like
stay.
that.
No.
And then when it does change again, and you can go back to our episode on developmental milestones, like it's totally a developmental thing, but the first thing somebody will tell you is it's because of breastfeeding. Or give them more food, or start them on solids, or you breastfed them to sleep. So now this is what's happening to them, and all this stuff. And it's like, that's not the case. This is not, we have to kind of look and see what's going on here and check out all the things. I saw a mom the other day, this baby was a little pork chop, like totally this little chunk-a-munk baby, and was waking, every 3 hours during the night. And she was like, I don't know. And of course, like had become more efficient. This is like a great example, actually. He was 6-7 weeks, something like that, had become more efficient. So was only nursing, and mom had a great milk supply. So was only nursing for like 5 minutes or something, 5-6 minutes, but then was waking every 3 hours at night. And she was like, I don't know, like, is he not having full feeds during the day? Like, what is happening? I don't understand. And his was fine. Like his milk transfer was amazing. He fed great. Like there was no issue there, but I thought it was more of like almost like a reflux, like I think he was really like that milk was he was just getting so much milk and then waking during the night for different reasons, but then needing that comfort to go back to sleep. And in her mind, he wasn't getting enough to eat. And this kid was like a chunker. Like, no, he is fine. Like there's nothing wrong with this baby. But he was just like, she's reading it as every time a baby wakes up, we read it as they're still hungry. It's like, no, everything adapts. And it doesn't necessarily mean, yes, when they're like a minute and a half old, they're waking for different reasons too. So we always just label it as, it's because you're breastfeeding, and breastfeeding isn't enough to carry them through the night. So,
and then you have a baby that's not a chunker, and then the doctor is like, well, he's obviously not getting enough.
Right. Yeah. So it never, you never
Nobody
win.
can win ever.
No, you can't.
It's just losing. If you just lose at everything and then you die.
I remember, when I got divorced, my divorce lawyer, and I don't remember how this even came up, but I remember him saying something about, because the kids were really young. They were like, 2 or 3 years old or something like that. And something about them sleeping, and they were always pretty good sleepers, but I remember him saying, oh, that's unusual for breastfed babies. And I was like, okay. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know. But, I was like in a divorce fog. So I don't really, I don't know why that even came up. Like, but I very distinctly remember him saying that. And I think a lot of that is the impression that people get. Breastfed babies do not sleep well. And it's like, that's
such crap.
It is crap.
Babies sleep like crap.
That's what it is. Babies don't sleep well.
Like babies do. And what is well? Babies don't sleep like you. They're not on your schedule, which is inconvenient. That's all. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. They're not on your schedule and you're mad about it.
Right.
I get it. Like it's like annoying. and exhausting. And it's
yeah.
you know, it's very like, especially in this day, in this world where like we're totally isolated families where many people have to go to work and you're completely responsible for absolutely making everything happen. And you have so much stuff to do during the day. When you don't sleep at night, it feels like utter chaos. I mean, it is chaos.
It's awful. I mean,
but there's nothing wrong with your baby. Your baby's just being a baby.
That's all it is.
But and they're just growing and they're changing constantly growing and changing. And when you see something that changes, that means they're growing. It doesn't mean that something is wrong.
But we always have to try to figure out what is the problem, right? You have a baby that was sleeping 6 hours and now all of a sudden at 4 or 5 months old, they're not doing that anymore. And you're like, all right, what's the problem?
Well, you know what? And this is what I wanted to say too. It just so human beings and the brains that we have, we are wired to think negatively. This is a survival skill. This is what has kept us alive. This is just an instinct. So we tend to think it protects us and keeps us alive. So everything that happens, your brain is going to go, well, what's wrong? You're just going to look for the danger because this is just how we are. And so you have to, I mean, it's really hard to be conscious about it, but it's what happens, especially with babies when you're kind of like hyper aware of your baby all the time. When something changes, you're going to go, what's wrong? I have to protect my baby, so I have to see what's wrong. But this is why education helps, because then you can say, oh, I actually know that this is supposed to be happening. I actually know that this is normal.
And when you're in it, it feels like forever. You know, when you're like in it, it's like, oh my God, this will never end. But it really does. Then it's going to change again and be completely different.
It's so hard to know that. I remember like looking back and thinking about like those early days and just how much you're in that moment fully, and you can't see that there's something different coming next week.
Right.
You can't see it at all. You're just in this, like, it's like a heavy, thick fog where you can't see, your hand in front of your face. You just can't see anything different ever happening.
But it does, and things will change again. And then the breastfeeding relationship will change again. And it might be a little bit more difficult or it might be a little bit easier. And then it'll evolve again. And you don't have to like the phase, but it will happen. You're not going to stay in one place.
Yeah. So babies start to eat more efficiently. And then sometimes reverse to just spending more time there, maybe just not even eating, just comfort nursing.
Yeah, a lot of, I was going to say, but a lot of that is developmental. They need that comfort. They need that security. And parents really get offended almost by it. They're like, well, the baby's using me as a pacifier. The baby's just on there all the time. Baby just, I'm like, well, you're their person. Like, you're their comfort. That's where they get their comfort. That's what they need. Like, it just, I don't know. We look at these babies like, why aren't they doing their own thing? They just need to get with the program. And it just is not happening.
Yeah, they won't get with your program.
Ever. No,
ever.
Yeah.
No, I know. I was, yesterday I was so irritated with everybody in my house. And I was just like, I live with too many people. Like, I don't want to live with all of these people walking around with free will.
I know.
This is really, it's just very inconvenient and annoying. And they actually get worse because then they start saying no. They start understanding that, they have like their own, they can make their own decisions. They can actually like not do what you tell them to do. Yeah. So they won't be like on you all the time eventually, but they'll still be way annoying.
Yeah, they'll still be annoying too. I know. There's some days
what
where
other changes do people see? What happened? What other changes come with age? I know we're almost done, but I mean, we're talking about more frequent feeding. More efficient feeding. We're talking about wakefulness,
more efficient feeding. You're going to feel it like definitely as your breast milk starts to what's the word I'm looking for? Your body starts to adapt to everything and, regulate. That's what I'm looking for. You're going to feel less full. You might leak less. That's normal stuff. But that's always things that people question, like, is my milk supply still good? You might have pain with latch again, depending on what's going on with your baby.
Latch is going to change as their mouth gets bigger and they forget.
And the other thing that has to do with that too, and I didn't even realize this, but a speech therapist who specializes in infant feeding told me one time, like, once they hit, certain milestones in their growth development and they have those growth spurts, their jaw's growing, their facial muscles are growing, everything is growing, and that changes how they latch. So all of this stuff is evolving.
Yeah,
like your baby is not just staying the same.
Toddlerhood, man, you got to start all over again trying to get them to latch in a comfortable way.
Yeah, so all this stuff is very, very normal, and it just goes with the changes of your baby. So as your baby changes, just kind of in the back of your mind, know and expect, oh, okay, I might see some breastfeeding changes with this too. I might notice that the latch feels a little different because we're going through a growth spurt now. Like just kind of keep that in the back of your mind, because it could very well, and if it doesn't and your baby just glides right through, perfect. But yeah. But
well, thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.